Welcome. It's another segment of In Depth and Out Loud. And for you, the student, it's a bridge between the real world of working and what happens in any industry and why you're learning what you're learning as you're studying. And my guest today, quite an accomplished individual who in the world of public relations has done wonders. They call him Tools, apparently. Maybe it's because he's got the right tools wherever he goes. His name is Thulane Hadebe. He's a PR consultant, and he joins me today to talk about the world of building, great brands and making people, organizations famous. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Mo.
It's interesting on your Instagram, it says everything I touch turns to popular. Mm-hmm. Is that an ethos? Is that a mantra? Is that a result?
All of the above. Mo, I feel like everything that I embrace, love, touch, do, I always want it to be explode to something bigger and better. I love the fact that I almost have the Midas touch, if you will, or something like being a trendsetter. So I always try to stay ahead of the curve rather than follow them,
So with that said, what then is the role of PR in building a brand? Where does it fit?
I do believe that when you talk about PR, it's about relationships and the relationships that you form. So traditionally, what PR is, for the layman's term, is taking a brand and making sure that the public knows about it, and which I'm very good at. It took me a while for me to say that, but and technically that is what PR is about, and taking a brand to its heights and exploring all its facets and making sure that people know exactly what it's about and talking about it in all traditional and new ways of media.
Do you think, and this is also partly based on your experience, do you think every organization needs PR? Do you think every individual needs PR? What's been your take on that?
I feel that everyone has PR regardless of who you are, whether you are just an individual. PR could be even something on the likes of what people say about you. If you are sitting in a room and you're not there, what are people saying about you? And you want it to reflect the best way you are. You understand what I'm saying? So I believe that every business, every organization, every person should know who they are, and then in some way know what their PR is about.
So then where does PR fit if you throw in, for example, marketing or even advertising? Is there a difference? Is it more of a synergetic sort of relationship? Where does it fit in?
So yes and no. Marketing versus advertising and PR are completely different. When it comes to advertising, I don't know how to do the above the line graphics and radio ads, etc. when it comes to that. Whereas PR is the relationships that you have with the media. And for me, my black book consists mainly of press and media. That is the crux of my business. When it comes to marketing, that is almost holistic. And I think that's when it comes down to the PR, the rollout plan. So that's why I say we all work together, but we are different parts of the car that moves.
Sure. So let's talk about rollout plans and strategies.
Yeah.
A PR strategy. I hear about this all the time.
Yeah.
PR strategy, this and that. What is that?
Do you remember when Beyonce cleared her whole Instagram, took away her profile picture, and was quiet? It was quiet, and people didn't know what was going on. And then she announced that Renaissance is coming out.
Right.
Break My Soul came out. That is the rollout from her, that she sits with Yvette and that she says Yvette is her publicist.
For sure.
I say it like we're on talking terms. And this is the rollout where the world embraces the Renaissance. Now, coming back to now her recent album that's coming out now, she just announced it. And so that was a different PR strategy. So depends on what you want to achieve and how you want to achieve it. I think it's important when you talk about a strategy of how to do it. I think it's important of what the key messaging you want to get out.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I have to talk about what it is that informs a PR strategy. When you talk to people who deal with a lot of data, they'll talk about numbers and insight and all of that. In your world, how does it work?
As I said earlier, I think for me, it's the relationships that I have. Is that, listen, it's highly publicized as being Kris Jenner, where you're picking up the phone to TMZ and you're calling them exactly to say, this is what my client will not be doing, this, etc. Right. And that is your Bible. At the end of the day, it's the relationships that you have. Yes, your client is important, but the relationships that you have with the press and the media so that you get good press is important.
Yeah, I mean, how do you control that? Is there a way you can control what is out there, what is being said about you? You speak about good press. What about bad press? Is there a way of managing that reality? Even the PR disasters, what is that even?
So I don't think there is, you can control your narrative as much as you can. However, the world that we live in with social media and digital media, it moves so quickly and people have voices no matter who you are, and it can spiral out of control. So sure. Is all press good press? Not. It depends on how you spin it, and that's why sometimes we're called the spin doctors. Is that yes, you might think it's this one way, however, it can be changed into another way. So, in terms of crisis management, which is the bane of my existence, is when something goes wrong, and I think it's really about boggling down, seeing what values and what your brand is about, and then going back to that to make sure that the narrative gets changed in a better way.
I mean, is there such a thing as reactive PR or proactive PR? I mean, when you talk about things you control and managing your narrative.
I think, in terms of reactive PR, I'm going to go back to Beyonce, yes, again. So, for instance, when on one of the songs that she put out, she said a derogatory word towards differently abled people. And soon after that, the word was changed digitally.
Sure.
So that is reactive PR, whereas proactive PR is making sure that what we do is checking all the bases, and that people know exactly, okay, we're covering all bases and we can do an action plan of what we want to do.
I mean, as a PR consultant, you've obviously dealt with different types of clients. How do you explain to them that what you're doing is meaningful? And I'm talking about value.
Yes.
Is there a way to quantify all the stuff that you're doing?
So this is a very good question, because at the end of the day, people are like, I was in the magazine, but I wasn't on the cover. Or they'll say something like, it was just like a snippet, So yes, there is the AVE, which is the advertising value equivalent. However, you can't monetize and you can't quantify really what your brand personality and your identity is when people are talking about you, really. There's more of the notions and the intentions and what people feel, and that's what we manage, and that's very hard to quantify, if you will. So it is very challenging, but listen, I haven't had any complaints as of yet. So
how do you navigate a space where you're dealing with different clients? One minute it's a corporate, the next is maybe an individual. As somebody that's done a lot of work as a consultant, does that affect or have an impact on how you do your job? Or is it just, it's easy to be professional because at the end of the day, I'm a PR consultant? I mean, is it a real thing?
Yeah, I feel between the differences is that my thing is that I always make them feel like they're number one and they're my number one priority, no matter if it's an individual or it's a corporate. And obviously, different people pay different retainers at the end of the day. So I think that's important to make your client always feel that they are top of mind and they are your number one priority.
Sure. I mean, I'm thinking about a PR student who's thinking about the next step, which is getting into the world of working, they may not start where you are and the level you're at now. Take me through the realities. Is it glamorous? Is it always about working with Beyonce? Or are we dealing with other complex issues, complex clients as a PR practitioner?
So from my business side, it looks glamorous, especially when I work with lifestyle brands and all the glamorous side of it. However, it's take off your designer shoes and get to work, because sometimes it's not just swanning around with champagne. It is making sure that you have great relationships with your press and media, making sure that things are going right on a shoot, or the next steps that I would say, you know, because I always get people coming to my door and wanting internships and wanting to work with me. Send to info@brandambassadors.co.za. Please don't DM me. But what I will say is that learn the industry that you want to go in, because there's different kinds of PR. I think the best thing to do is understand it, know and learn what PR. Yes, this side of the PR looks glamorous and fun and amazing, but there's also CSI PR. There's also other factors of PR. As we said earlier, every organization needs PR, and I feel that starting from the get-go, you know, interning in the industry that you want to get into and knowing lots about it will help.
Yeah, I mean, what are some of the things that you have to do, maybe have had to do in this industry that a lot of people didn't even think one would have to do that, because they see the title or the role and they're like, PR person, PR consultant, etc., etc.
So sometimes, especially when it comes to individuals, the lines get blurred, especially from a client perspective. I'm thankful enough that I have great clients and I've had personal relationships with them. So it has grown more to just doing a press release about them. Right. It has now, you know, that I'm invited to their homes and their family, because it also is a personal thing when you think about it. What are the things that I've had to do that have just been out of spectrum? I guess, yeah, I mean, taking a photo for, you know, because you don't want the press to get it out, of Leanne Liebenberg and Nikki van der Walt about to announce their pregnancy. So I'm taking the photo, you know, so that we control the narrative.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Yes,
so I think, yeah, so not just...
it's not just press releases all the time.
Exactly.
It's other things as well.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
But it's fun. I think, you know, don't get me wrong, I really enjoy my job and I really love it. But there is a lot more to it than, you know, desk work and PR.
Sure. I also want to talk about, because you're a business person, the toolkit that you need when you're running a PR agency or a consultancy. You know, what is that for you? What do you think are the most important tools that you have in what you do and how you run your business?
Well, you can't have tools because I'm tools. I would definitely say the most important things to have is just a great sense of speaking and making sure that you have great relationship skills with people. I think that is the one factor that I would always say if you wanted to be a stick ahead in PR. And be prepared to brush things off. You need to be able to have a thick skin and be able to brush things off, and sometimes react quickly or give it a beat and think about something clearly. So I think maybe those three things I would definitely say in your toolkit. But yes, I think in terms of some practical, tangible things, definitely a great contact list. A contact list of people, and not just anybody that you text, you know, and say, send a press release. Because there's one thing about sending a press release out to someone and they say, oh, another one from him. But when I say, hey, okay, I know it might not be your thing, but can we word it and can we do it something, because I know that this will be great for your audience to write about, or for you to hear or see or grant an interview. So that is very important at the end of the day.
You speak a lot about building relationships, and it seems like it's a really key thing to have when you are in the space. What does that look like? I mean, how do you build relationships?
At the end of the day, you have to be authentic in who you are, I think, and it can't be fake in terms of, you see a press representative and then it's the first thing you're talking about is your client and the last press release you sent off. It needs to be also personal. Sometimes it's like, oh, how is your child? And I saw this online. So I think that is super important, and that's what's given me success, is that it's authentic, because they're not my friends. However, there is a sense of we're working and you know what I'm doing, So that's why I think it's really important to hone in on that relationships that you have with your press and media.
Sure. So great interpersonal skills, but also have great admin skills.
Yes.
It sounds like you've got to be very organized, think quick, but also take your time in making decisions and taking the next step.
Absolutely.
It sounds like a lot. The other big thing is trust and reputation. How do you deal with that, and how do you convince a client that you are the perfect person for the job, whether as a consultant like you or maybe as a graduate stepping out into the big world, to say, trust me, I can add value here in what you guys are doing?
I mean, look at the material. I mean, no, I'm kidding.
You're in the right space.
Yeah. I do believe, so one of the things that I do is when I take a meeting with anybody, I always say that I need to believe in you as much as you believe in me. You can take I can take their paycheck easily, fine. However, at the end of the day, I need to believe in your brand, because if I don't believe in your brand, how can I sell it? How can I pitch it to press and media at the end of the day? It doesn't, it won't be authentic if I don't. Actually, that was a great soundbite.
You did your own personal PR within the PR.
I really did, yeah.
I love it. The advent of social media in the world of public relations has created something. What has been that impact in your assessment, even in the work that you're doing as a consultant?
I feel that, with our devices, everyone has a voice, and it's great that we have a voice, especially if we use it as a collective, fees must fall, etc., things like that. However, there is the other side of it, and where there's cancel culture, etc. And from a PR perspective, I do believe that you can only do the best that you can, because sometimes it snowballs and rolls into something bigger than you really anticipated. I've had situations in the past where we're like, okay, this is now online and this is now being picked up by every single newspaper, and I'm getting calls about this. I'm not going to say what it was, maybe off air. But, then it's about navigating and being honest and truthful in what your intentions were and where you're going. So I think it is important from a social media point of view to always maybe take a breather, take a breath, especially when there's negative stuff going on, before you react to it.
It's interesting because even I have had experiences where I've had to ask myself, do I respond to this, whatever came up on social media, or do I leave it? So what is your take on that?
But what happens, so you get into that predicament, but then where do you decide, yes, okay, I'm going to say something, I'm going to clap back or whatever?
Yeah.
So what, in the instances that's happened with you, what have you done?
I've had instances where I chose not to respond.
Be the bigger person.
Because sometimes I felt responding is actually creating a bigger snowball.
And fueling it.
But I'm not sure from a PR point of view whether that's a good strategy, or does it depend on what it is that's being said about you that then informs, whether you respond or not. Because I've seen instances where people respond, and I'm like, but why are you responding?
Yeah.
Unless they're on good advice to you.
Yeah. And it's it's so, it's such a tricky one here. And it depends on what it is and how you respond and how you clap back and what you're going to say, you know, in certain situations. And there's no cut black and white answer here. And what I will say is that whatever your brand is about, that's when you know that you're going to either say something back. For instance, let me give an example of rap culture and rap beefs. When there's rap beefs, people respond with songs,
yes.
and that is the culture thereof. So, but when it's Windsor Castle, when they're saying something about King Charles, then it's done in a different way, and you know, to navigate the narration of it. So, I think it's really important. It depends on what it is at the end of the day. You know.
So, for instance, if there's bad press about an artist, is the best response a song? Or is it, let me go and, you know, feed hungry kids somewhere in Africa? And do some of those responses actually make sense? Can you find yourself in a position where the response is
worse?
It creates a bigger problem.
Exactly. And that's why you have to be so careful. And I always believe that when you show your authenticity and you show your true intentions of what it is, then the audience and the public will understand it. And, you know, things can swing in your favor. Yeah, especially, as you were saying with artists, I think it definitely is something that you can, it's very tricky, yeah.
And I suppose these are some of the things that you don't necessarily learn about in a lecture room,
no,
but are things you pick up when you're in the space. So your ability to almost learn quickly and read the room.
It is, honestly, and you just need to, it is the worst, to be honest with you, when something goes into the Twitterverse especially, and then your phone floods. It's happened to me where something happened and my phone was ringing so much until the battery died. Yeah. So, but then in that instance, I had to make sure that my client needed to cool off, and then we tackled what we had to do. And now it's old news.
You are a brand ambassador as well.
Correct.
I know a lot of people in the media industry, people like myself who are in broadcasting, television, whatever. You know, we all have that element of trying to create a commercial side, you know, of our popularity. What would you say are some of the key things in being a brand ambassador that brands want to work with? I mean, you know, how does that come together?
For me, I always say brands need to align. I think that's the most important thing for me. And when I work with a brand, I always make sure that the brands are aligned. I have said no to a lot of things, and this is more so in my personal capacity when it comes to the Yes It's Me Tools brand. And I would always say that I always go with brands that make sense. I mean, I'm not going to do sanitary pads because that doesn't make sense. However, I do have a 60% audience that is female, but it depends on how we word it.
Right,
you understand?
Right.
It's sure. If I was doing a sanitary pad drive or something, you know, around Women's Month, because I feel so strongly about it, then that's different. But for me to work with brands and, you know, accept a paycheck from it, it needs to be aligned, and it needs to be with where I'm going with my brand. You know, as much as, you know, I'm getting a paycheck, it needs to still make sense.
Yeah, because I suppose it also raises questions of being authentic, but also like ethical questions.
Yeah.
In terms of what you choose to be a part of. Do you always think about that even as a PR consultant? Does the ethical question ever come about? You know, maybe the client is unsavory, but you're going to take the money because, you know, you got to keep the books moving. What's your general take on that?
I have not ever. I've said no to a lot of people. But it really boils down to me really believing in the person that I take on.
Sure.
I've never. Yeah, I don't think. Maybe back in the day, in the first couple of years when I started out. When I started out, I was accepting denims as payment because I just wanted to get into the industry.
Wow.
And
Do you think it's okay to do that? To not always take money as remuneration?
No. Listen.
Even when you're starting out?
I do. It's tough. Also, where we are in this country and where PR is, where I would definitely say take internships where you have a stipend of some sort. I don't think, we should be not getting paid something, even when you're starting out. Listen, when I started my business, I was leaving a retail job and I resigned because I hated it. I hated every second of it, and I resigned. And then I got the best advice that I got from my dad, and he said to me, Tools, you're not a tree, you can move. And that's when I started Brand Ambassadors. I moved, I resigned the next day from my retail job, started Brand Ambassadors. So there, it wasn't me going to an internship, but I do strongly suggest go for internships, know the industry. Whereas with me, at least I thank God I had the support of my father at the time, for my business, to start my business. And that's when I started my business. And, that was the growing pains of starting, taking denims. Will I take denims today? Oh, hell no.
Maybe red bottoms.
Yeah. Yeah, yes. Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah.
Graduates are constantly knocking on doors to try and get opportunities. What do you look for in anybody that you want to bring into Brand Ambassadors?
Very good question. You need to stick out, first and foremost. Especially the fact that we work in a lifestyle space. You need to look the part. I'm not saying we're the most designer outfits. I think you need to look presentable. That's the one thing. The second thing is learn how to spell. I think it's so important to learn how to spell. I think it's really, really, because the fact of the matter of seeing incorrect copy on press releases, you won't believe how many times that happens. Wow. Or invites or something crazy. It's really, really, really bad luck. I think that is what I look for. And just someone that has charisma, I think that is important at the end of the day, because it's it boils down to the relationships that we're talking about. And when you have that personal relationship, with people, then you've got something. And really good with admin, as you said earlier.
There are a lot of students who need to figure out what to do once they're done studying, and this conversation is to try and give them some sort of insight. As we wrap, what's your word to students who are really trying to get into this industry and build themselves to be something one day?
Not one word, like just the last final words,
yes,
right?
Nobody can tell you to use one word. Your tools after all.
I think my biggest thing that I'd want to say to the students is that it may seem glamorous at times, it may seem like a great opportunity. However, the most important thing is the work and making sure that your client is happy at the end of the day. There's nothing more amazing than a client being elated with the work that you've done. And it's a lot of behind the scenes. You want to be out there, however, it is a lot of the behind the scenes work, and you got to work at the end of the day.
Thulane, Tools, thank you so much. All the best with Brand Ambassadors, and thank you for joining us in this segment to shed some light into the sometimes glamorous but sometimes not so glamorous world of being a PR consultant and just public relations in general. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, there you go. Looking forward to another segment. It is In Depth and Out Loud. Find out who my next guest is.